Howdy, Aggs. Welcome to the Aggies Central podcast. Thanks for waiting a couple extra days for this one because I think I got something nicely prepared for you. The biggest question on your mind right now is, can your Aggies bounce back after a very troubling loss to App State? We got a big matchup coming with Miami this Saturday. So there's a mixed bag of reviews out there. So let me tell you a story about your opponent. Then let's talk about your Aggies and make a prediction. But before we do that, like and subscribe to the channel so that I can keep bringing you this content. I love to bring it to you. It's something that I do each week that I enjoy. So do that, and I'll keep piping it in for you. Now, don't forget, if you are new to the channel, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd like to know just how far that Aggie network is reaching out. So let's get to it. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicted this was going to be an above average season for hurricanes, predicting that there would be close to 20 named storms and as many as 10 reaching hurricane status. That all changes Saturday when the Miami Hurricanes come to Kyle Field. The two teams have clashed 3 times, the first coming in 1944 with the Aggies winning the inaugural matchup 70-14. Miami claimed the next 2 with a combined score of 75-40. Saturday's matchup will give the Aggies a chance to even the series after a 14-year drought. Miami is a storied program, and although not a blue blood according to the establishment, you would never know it from a rundown of their history. Boasting an overall record of 637 wins to 371 losses with 19 ties, the Canes have a 63% winning percentage. They have officially claimed 5 national titles in 83, 87, 89, 91, and the most recent in 2001. They've hoisted an additional 9 conference championships while a part of the Big East. Accompanying those titles, the U has 2 Heisman Trophy winners in Vinny Testaverde and Gino Torretta, and a host of other superlatives. Ranked 4th all-time in AP poll appearances, Miami has enjoyed 48 consecutive NFL drafts for the player drafted, holding the record for the most defensive linemen at 49, and is tied with USC for most receivers drafted at 40. Miami has been called home to some of the most well-known players in the last 30 years like Jim Kelly, Michael Irvin, Warren Sapp, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Edgerrin James, such that their legendary status resides in Canton. And the stories don't stop there. Likely their most famous coach, Jimmy Johnson, took over the program in 1984, which would certainly provide the necessary kindling. Johnson would come to the Canes fresh off their first championship from Oklahoma State and immediately cemented their name in college football lore. Currently, they own the biggest comeback defeat, allowing Maryland to come back from a 31-zip halftime lead to win 42-40. Just 1 week later, Miami would find themselves on the wrong side of the campfire stories when Doug Flutie cemented his name as college football legend with his 48-yard Hail Mary connection on the final play. Not to be outdone, the Canes' 1987 campaign would prove to be historic, going 12-0, beating in-state rivals Florida and Florida State, Notre Dame, and number 1 Oklahoma on their way to their second national championship. Miami reloaded with Dennis Erickson when Jimmy Johnson left after that season for the Dallas Cowboys, which would see the U winning another ship in 1989 and again in 91. Butch Davis would take the reins in 1995, but wouldn't be able to repeat his predecessor's success after being snubbed by the BCS in 2000 despite marquee wins over number 1 FSU and number 2 Virginia Tech. The Canes were reeling and took their anger out on their opponents in 2001, beating their opponents by 20-plus in every outing except 2 behind head coach Larry Coker, and won their most recent natty. Miami would gradually degrade and fall out of the limelight over the next 5 years as they found a way to lose more and more games while their on and off the field looks took blow after blow, with an on-the-field brawl with FIU. Randy Shannon would take over in 2007, and even though he played linebacker for the 1987 Miami squad, he wouldn't come close to returning the program to their former glory. Al Golden would have similar problems, none more prominent than losing to Florida State year in and year out for 6 years. Mark Richt, fresh off explosion from Georgia, found a way to get back in the win column against the Seminoles in 2017, but the writing was on the wall for the Noles as it saw the departure of the Aggies coach Jimbo Fisher. Due mostly to dysfunction with the Noles, Miami claimed the next 4 matchups despite never winning more than 7 games in a season, which facilitated quick moves from Rick to Manny Diaz and now to Cristobal, who is now 2-0 for his tenure with wins over Bethune and Southern Miss. Through 2 games, Miami sits pretty right outside the top 10 in total offense with 516 yards per game and an accomplished 7.1 yards per play. Averaging over 5.4 yards on the ground, the Canes are tied for the 15th best rushing attack with 241 yards per game. The numbers put up through the air may not jump out at you on paper, but they are respectable at 10 yards per attempt for 275 yards per game. Most notably, they are completing a staggering 78% of their passes. Their offense has not been without their head scratchers like your Aggies by giving up 2 sacks per game and 15 tackles for loss, costing 3.5 yards each hiccup. But they are currently playing with house money since they are +2 in turnover margin per game, even though they got rid of the turnover chain. And when they get down on their luck, they know how to hit a blackjack on third downs, converting at 65% each clip to be 4th best in the nation. And they are good on the roulette table too. When they get to the red zone, they are getting in 92% of the time. 84% of those trips pay 7-1 with touchdowns. Sure, Bethune is an FCS team, and Southern Miss is in the triple digits in both total offense and defense, but you have to respect a team who has put up 40-plus plays of 10 yards or more, helping them to average 27.5 first downs, good enough for 13th in the country. Overall, on offense, you are looking at a competent scheme from their OC John Gaddis, who likes to establish the line of scrimmage and then play speed and space. He optimized this scheme with Miami's personnel. Running backs Henry Parrish and Thaddeus Franklin give them a nice 1-2 punch. Parrish is their speedster at 5'10", 190, and Franklin is their bruiser at 6 foot 240. To get these guys space, they will focus their QB, Tyler Van Dyke, on throwing the ball down the field for completions of at least 10 yards. Dyke isn't a flashy QB with a 9.7 yard per attempt, but he completes nearly 74% of his passes. After they have sucked the defense in by pounding the run, Van Dyke will distribute to their wideouts to all areas of the field. For their time, Parrish is averaging 5.8 yards per carry on 17 totes, putting him over 100 yards per game. Parrish particularly excels on first down, knocking on the 7-yard per carry door. Franklin isn't far behind on yards per game with 67, but jumps out at you in yards per touch with 6.4. And after Gaddis establishes the line with a steady diet of Parrish and Franklin, he will look to get their number 1 wide receiver Restrepo the ball in space, and he likes to eat. Averaging 5.5 receptions per game, he is pulling a load with over 15 yards per catch, which is a massive contribution to moving the chains. He is a weapon on all downs, but none more than first with an average of 20 yards. But his second down average of 13.5 yards does more than just keep them on schedule. Between him and their number 2, Mac Hippenhammer, the Canes average a first down per attempt. Flipping the script, Miami's defense has shown significant improvement to this point from 2021 when they averaged 389 yards allowed per game, giving up over 1,600 yards on the ground and 3,000 in the air. Led by Corey Flagg Jr., Miami's defense has limited their opposition to 289 yards per game, over a 100-yard improvement from 2021. Flagg is 5'11 and 230 pounds and is leading the team with 10 tackles, making 60% of those solo. Even though Flagg is leading as linebacker, don't sleep on safety James Williams. Running a 4-2-5 defense almost exclusively, they rely on their front 4 to get pressure, and they do a good job with a tenacious attitude. Teams have most of their success against them by passing despite a more than competent secondary. And although giving up a fair amount of yards, they are not resulting in points, exemplifying the bend but don't break scheme. Miami has allowed 20 plays of 10 or more yards, which then drops drastically to only 4 of 20-plus yards, showing that they are very good at keeping nearly everything in front of them. So you want to beat Miami and weather the storm? Want to make a statement and prove all the criticism has been sorely misplaced? I sure as hell know I do. I'm sure you're just like me as well. So on offense, these are my keys. My keys for offense are, first, establish the run and win the line of scrimmage. It will be a massive help if we can not be predictable in doing this as well. They usually rush 4, and blitzing is kind of irregular for them. They utilize, again, 2 linebackers, which is a standard practice for them. They want to get pressure with 4 so the linebackers can keep in the middle of the field closed off, and then, keep everything on the edge so they can use the sidelines as a 12th defender. So our offense has to suck the middle of the field in, to cover the run, make their linebackers cover that run, and we got to do this while playing physical. We can't let their linebackers just make obvious gap reads where they need to be. They're going to have to be made to make a more difficult choice. With only 6 up front, we can easily get medium chunk plays if we get their linebackers out of position. But easier said than done. So if this is not the option, which we know it might not be based off of what our run game has showed us to this point, it's going to be important to understand how they succeed on defense. Their coverage, although tight at times, is prone to leave some space. Not necessarily a whole lot, but there is some space that they leave. So they're effective basically due to strength in numbers. They're best suited to provide tight coverage when the routes are very vanilla. Look, I like my Bluebell ice cream vanilla, just not my routes. And look, the ice cream is even better when it's got a little bit of chocolate sauce on it and some M&M minis or something like that worked in. So we're going to have to work in more in our routes to make them cover things that are more difficult. If it's just going to be vanilla, then they're going to have a much easier time covering our routes. This is true all the time, don't get me wrong, but it seems as if we do this more on the regular, and so our routes are cut off with better coverage because it's just a little bit easier to cover us, on the regular. So the same will be true if we can, draw their linebackers in and effectively run the game. We can hit quick slants if we do that. If we can open up the middle of the field, crosses become available much easier, and then pick routes would be just like Texas T. And we've got to do stuff that's more difficult for them to defend, like those kinds of routes, rub routes, whatever. We could stand to have a little bit more motion. Jimbo talks about eye violations all the time. We're not really doing a whole lot to, create those kinds of things. It'd make it a lot easier if we were. Now, defensively, we're going to have to affect the quarterback first. We're going to need to work in a few more blitzes than we have, in my opinion. We're going to need to put some pressure on Van Dyke, either in hurries, tackles for losses, or sacks. Either is fine. We got hit a couple times last week by App State when letting the quarterback out of the pocket, running for some very, not big yardage, but just very timely yardage. So getting home with the pressure is really, really important on Saturday. Second, Restrepo is going to have to be accounted for at all times. This guy's accounting for like 25% of their receptions. One guy's got 25% of the receptions for the entire team. So holding him to like 4 or less receptions will be a pretty solid outing. And finally, my final key to this game is getting off the field on 3rd down. That's going to be a big one. Time of possession last week was just horrendous for us, and defense was on the field. I can't believe they played as well as they did late in the game. So what we're going to have to do is get off that field. 3rd downs, we got to be moving off. We got to get the offense back on. We need more tries offensively than we've been getting. And if we can do that, I think we can win with Haynes King. So all my keys are things that I think we can do with Haynes King and with the line as it is. Would I want to see Max Johnson? I'm going to be pretty agitated if we go through more than 2 drives and it's looking, pretty dire from that squad and not getting somebody new in there. So we'll see how that goes. Jimbo said he's open to playing somebody else. I've heard that both are getting equal reps. So I'm optimistic that a change could take place if improvement's not seen. I will expect some change on Saturday, and I don't know how to tell you what it's going to be, but I do expect there to be some change. Personnel-wise, schematic-wise, game plan-wise. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but we'll dissect that on the reaction. My prediction for this game, this is difficult. I almost think it's kind of loaded because last game I predicted 35-17. 17 is what App State put up. It was money, right on the money with that, but the 35 we just didn't have. And right now, I have trouble predicting that we're going to score more than 17 points. I think that's really pulling teeth, thinking about maybe scoring more than that with a very competent team coming in. More than competent. That doesn't really do them justice. So they're a very solid team, and if we can utilize the dink and dunk passes, the 7 to 8 yard passes, they do want to keep everything in front of them. But if we can get these short yardage passes, not behind the line of scrimmage, but just 3-4 yards, maybe break it off and fall forward, get 2 or 3 more, we can really work the ball down the field. And if we can establish the run, we have the potential. Again, the potential. I mean, stuff that we have not done yet. We can go out and put up 35 or 40 points on this team. That's not really the issue. We just haven't seen us work to our potential. So until I see us work to our potential, I don't think I'm going to make any kind of grandiose claims about what our offense is getting ready to do. I think our defense is more predictable at this point. They have a pretty solid offense, and so I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with 17 from Miami. I think it's a good number. Like I said, it's a good offense. That number could get as low as 7, I think, with a quickness. Van Dyke could throw some interceptions, and I think our defense could very well, produce some turnovers and stuff. Hopefully, we're not going to need the special teams to score a touchdown, but I would like to see 14 to 17 out of our offense, and I think that's possible. I'm going to go from our offense. Wow, I mean, almost seem like sitting at 14 again with our offense is about right, but that would probably consider us not getting a special teams touchdown this week. So I think that's pretty well even. We're playing a little bit maybe more competent defense. Maybe schematically they're not as good. Here's what I'll do. I think what we're looking at here is a 2017 game, and I'm going to have to put this in favor of Miami. I hate to do it. I really do. I hate to do it. I just need to see more about what we can do execution-wise, and that our potential is turning into ability before I'm going to be comfortable with picking this team to win. We got a lot of things to fix. Maybe Foster's going to be back in the center. That would help. Maybe Max Wright is going to be back. Tight end, that would help. Andre White, I'm not sure he's going to be back. It would be nice to see McKinley Jackson back. But defense has been pretty confident. I'd like to see the secondary be solidified with who's going to be playing back there, because we've had quite a bit of rotation there too. Same on the defensive line. I'd like to see not as much subbing going on, and letting these guys work an entire series. But I like the idea of keeping them fresh, because that is important. Thank goodness it's a night game this time. It's going to be much cooler for the fan. And yeah, it's going to be an intriguing matchup to see what we can actually do against these guys. Good team. Excited to play them. I hope we can get this ship righted, and I hope we can flip this college football world back up on its head, because the hate has been real. And if we can do that, if we can get this win, the season could be on a turnaround really quickly. But we need a spark, and we need some confidence, and that would come and be a great timely win for us to get that. So we'll see you back on Sunday for the reaction. Hopefully we're bringing you something interesting that is followed by a W. All right, so until then, we'll talk to you, and thanks to Gig'em.